You're listening to the Karmic Mirror podcast, where we explore the wisdom tucked within the layers of the self-help world.
Together, we bridge the gap between esoteric teachings and practical tools for everyday life, with self-love and personal growth at the heart of each conversation.
Whether you're a seasoned seeker or just beginning your path, join us and uncover the magic within and around you. Hello and welcome back to Karmic Mirror Podcast. Today we are delving into the invisible yet potent connection between scent and memory, and how our senses, in particular our sense of smell, can at times act as a mirror, reflecting back hidden layers of our story and our soul. Our guest today is Riccardo Halac-Ruggeroni. Riccardo is a perfumer and creator whose path into fragrance began while working in fashion. What started as an exploration of candle concepts rooted in childhood scent moments grew into a full body of work, blending memory, artistry, and cultural lineage. 15, he left fashion to dedicate himself fully to perfumery, teaching himself the craft from the ground up. Today, through his brand RHR Luxury, Riccardo creates fragrances that not only scent a room, but carry stories, histories, and the power to mirror back who we are. So welcome, Riccardo, to Karmic Mirror Podcast.
Hello.
Hi.
We are so excited to have you here. And Riccardo, it was very kismet because Michelle and I voice note a lot. And when she shot me over a message about your work and having you on the episode, I had just been training about senses and memories in one of my courses, and also watching a movie about the amygdala. There's this scene in Someone Like You with Ashley Judd where she talks about her amygdala, and I had sent it to a friend and removing her amygdala because she wants to stop smelling the scent of her ex-boyfriend because she loses her shit. And when Michelle reached out, generator lit up and was so excited to have this conversation today. Before we dive into the perfumery and all of this beautiful work that we've brought you here to share with our audience, let's get to know you just a little bit better. We like to start by just highlighting astrology and human design. Might you know your sun, moon, and rising in astrology?
Well, I'm a Leo. I was born on August 20th, 2020. So it's on the cusp. So, I was born at 6 in the evening. I grew up in Argentina, in South America. And I was allowed, we were allowed in my family to choose our religion. And because of that, my dad is Jewish and my mom was Catholic. Because of that, there was a lot of openness about beliefs and about not so much about religiosity, being religious, but also about it. It was sort of like not so much encouraged, but it was sort of like, okay, there's this and then there's that and then astrology, because it's very popular. But I always thought that my rising was in Aquarius. And where's my moon? Many times I wake up and I don't even know where my moon is. I can tell you that.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'm blown away because Michelle's that Leo sun and the Aquarius rising as well, and we sure find each other when we're out there kind of understanding this work. And you said, did you know your moon, or Michelle, you know his moon?
No, you know my moon.
Yeah,
Well,
your
remember.
moon is also in Leo, and you're rising Aquarius like me
There you
as
go.
well.
I knew
And
it's
Leo
something that
sun,
was in
Leo
Aquarius.
moon.
It was something that, I didn't have that much of an easy childhood, but I was very close to my mom. And I got a chart done, like, I don't know, maybe when I was 14 or 15. And my mom, and it came out there, and it said, well, that I was destined for amazing things. And I was going to travel. I was going, all things that I kind of like already, I wanted to see the world. And because of all the things that the world would offer, not so much that today as an adult, I think that back then I wanted to escape because I was in a small town in the interior of Argentina. But if I think about it, I think I mastered with this concept of escaping. But in reality, I wanted to see the world. And I have this thing that I get really excited about things that I sort of I didn't know where it came from. And in terms of, oh, am I really that childish that I can get excited about a new brand of water, a bottle of water, and I go around and tell my husband, say, "Oh my God, look at this new brand." But in reality, this what happens is that there are many things that excite me. And I recently discovered this thing of the human design, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, share what you know about your human design, Ricardo.
Okay, apparently I'm a number three. And
I
Is a
was gonna
3-5 profile. Is a 3-5.
so
Oh,
then
that's new
when
experience.
I learned all that, and then I downloaded the app, and and thinking, where does she get all the girl that talks the app, the girl that
Oh,
sends?
Jenna Zoe.
But how does she learn all of this? Because it's just way too many coincidences, and it's true that I get overexcited about certain things, and then I want to show others, and then maybe others are not so excited. And sort of like you end up thinking, but this is such a good idea. Oh, this is so pretty, and what, and then so then it kind of like made sense when I discovered that I'm a number three, and that if I get excited about something, chances are I'll be able to communicate that to others. And if I'm not excited, I don't want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So also Ricardo generator 3-5 here. Hi. So
Well, there you go. You
I
see,
see you.
like in Bridesmaids, we're going to be the girls. Are going to be best friends. We're going to do everything together.
Here's hoping. And I was dying for you to share your human design as you were telling that story of yourself as when you got that reading when you were younger, because Aquarius rising to me does feel that very like expansive yearning to expand and find newness. But then the 3-5 and the generator just scream to me like those new experiences. And whether you're meant for big city or not, or whatever that looks like, you needed to literally get out and experience it and see it. And I love your comment about the water and the generator. And I think that's such a beautiful example of because I'm a generator, you're a generator, but a new water bottle wouldn't geek me out like that. And I have my own versions of that. And so for you, I think let's get into the world that you're in now and what lights you up is that's really intentional. And those are kind of the gifts and the nuances within human design that we get, and you are very lit up by the work you do now. And how did that come to be? What was that transition like for you?
I guess I should start from the very beginning. I loved perfumes since I was a kid. I was introduced to them by my parents in the 70s. And even though we lived in the interior of Argentina, we lived an hour and 10 minutes by plane from Buenos Aires in the north. And it's subtropical, and there are parts of Argentina that people don't normally know about. It's in a province where the famous falls are, Iguazu, the waterfalls. My dad decided to move us there in the early 70s to establish an interior design and decorating business. And he saw something that nobody else saw, that there were big homes and apartment buildings were starting to be built, and they with huge windows because it's very scenic. There's rainforest everywhere. There's a big river in the border with Paraguay. The views are stunning, wherever you look. And he saw that the windows needed curtains, and his business became very popular from the moment that he established. So he started to travel to Buenos Aires with my mom to purchase from his suppliers. Argentina has a huge textile industry and a big interior design and furniture, industry and whatnot. And then the way I got introduced to perfumes was through them smelling heavenly every day to go to work, to go to the store, and how they had perfumes for different times of the day or the seasons. And much more, moreover, was that at least once a month they would fly to Buenos Aires. And this was right at the beginning of the jet era, where suddenly I still remember, I'm 54, I still remember seeing turbofan planes with blades instead of the jet. And then suddenly it changed to the jet. They were small twin engine jets, and flying, it continues to be a little bit today in Argentina. People dress up to fly. And back then, it was a small airport, but it was a gathering of who was who because it was a small town and people knew each other. I must have been 5 or 6 where I was taken. I was desperate to get on the plane.
Yeah.
And the smells from that small airport of the jet fuel, the espresso coffee from the cafeteria, and toasted sandwiches or toasted croissants that people would be eating. The plane suddenly would arrive with the noise and whatnot. And then, like I said, the smell of jet fuel and the smell of people's perfumes. And I remember the vision of the skirts, high knee boots, and then men in their suits and also wearing boots and everything coordinated. All the colors, all brown, all beige, all gray. Women with their furs in the winter. My mom with her fur and the smells of the perfume said if you know a little, if you're an aficionado to perfumery, 70s and 80s was the last 2 decades where you had a lot of natural ingredients in perfumery. So people would, there would be time to board a plane. They would all board and it'd be a plane for like 80 or 90 passengers. And my dad had like a checkbook. It was a checkbook of airplane tickets that you would just approach and just take the ticket out and that's it. So you'll have your just in case if you were on the go and you needed to leave type of thing. That was the concept of the, and so then people checking in and doing the little line to get into the plane. And I knew that on the plane, they will be served champagne and little square ham and cheese sandwiches. And at the airport, they'd inevitably find friends and acquaintances or clients or people. So what you see today of on Instagram and social media, you see a lot of posts about the jet era from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and how the planes were all decorated inside and how it looked like a club. It really was that. And I get the chills thinking about it. It get emotional because it was just an image. It was just so beautiful and so glamorous. And at the same time, it looks like you looking back, you think, oh, why would people dress up that way? And why would but that's how people lived. That's what we did. That's what they did. And for me, seeing them flying to, and then go for 3 or 4 days, go to take a 5 p.m., 5:15 in the evening was on Friday the flight. It would give them time to attend the theater, a play on that Friday, and then go shopping Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday he'd go see his suppliers, do a round of visits, place orders, and then fly back on Monday night or Tuesday night. And it all seemed so far away. So perfumery was part of all of this that was so far away. So I never considered perfumery a career. I never thought it was always in the back of my mind something that I loved. And then I started to collect bottles. My first bottle of cologne was Azaro cologne when I was 12. And with my mom, I learned that she loved chypres. Chypres is a type of fragrance. And I was thinking a couple of days ago, how much what explain it? They asked me what is a Chipre. I remember my mom explaining to me, and I knew I must have been 6 or 7. I knew that Chipre was a country, Cyprus. Chipre is in Spanish, the one, and I knew that it was somewhere close to Greece. So I remember the scene of asking her what, and she looked down on me and she said Chipre, like showing me her teeth and how to pronounce it, Chipre. And I remember asking, what is it? And she said, it's a type of perfume. So fast forward, I did have a dream career. I became a fashion designer. I studied fashion. I went to college for fashion. I became a fashion designer. Before that, I learned a lot about interiors with my parents. And I also worked by myself in my 20s before diving into fashion. So I have about 10 years of interiors and then about 20 years of fashion design. Now, I decided to leave fashion, which is a subject for a whole other podcast. I still love fashion, but after working in it, everyone tells you, oh, fashion is very stressful. Yeah, fashion is really incredibly stressful. It's very competitive, very cutthroat. And I retired at a good spot of the career and I decided that I wanted to do something else. And I'm lucky that that I had the tools to do that. And these thoughts about perfumery, they had kicked in. But still today, perfumery continues to look and I would say in certain ways be unapproachable. It requires a lot of study and it's not for everybody. Even though everybody I see it requires you see new brands popping up and whatnot. I came into this thinking that I would do it the easy way. Once I decided that I wanted to create a candle brand of sorts, tell you the inspiration for that too. I thought, okay, how am I going to do this if I don't know perfumery? And the usual path that you would do if you have the resources to do is that you would contact a company that would make the candles for it. It's private label, which is it's a business model. It's a type of business that many companies do. And I contacted good ones, the big ones. And after 6 months, I received the samples and the samples were disappointing. Not that they were bad, but for me, And my husband saw it today my husband is still my partner, but he saw it in my eyes. And that's something that we can't fake. When you're having a conversation with someone, or like imagine when you're putting on clothes in front of the mirror, it's a very intimate moment. Really. It's just you in your image. So you put it on a blouse, and then you put on a jacket or whatever, and then you look at it, and in a second, you know if you like it or not. And that moment of disappointment, it's just you in the mirror, and you feel so small and then lonely. It doesn't matter if your husband or your boyfriend or whatever is behind you, because you're between you and your reflection, there's nothing. It's just you looking at yourself.
Yeah.
So this thing of this is not what I thought it would be. And then of course we stopped for a moment because I had invested a year of my time and meetings and discussions and phone conversations and discussing minimums and then
It's like very three-line, Riccardo,
Yes.
of experimenting, trying all of these new things, and I can sense, I can see and I can sense even that energy taking you back to this place. It's like that generator's balloon has been popped of their energy because you were so excited and going about it right the right way or the typical way, and then to have gotten these samples back. The other thing that
yeah,
I just keep thinking about, which is just extraordinary, and we see this with a lot of our guests, is that, this wovenness throughout your whole life, that scent and perfume has been so present for you. It just doesn't cease to amaze me. It's really beautiful to see how that has shaped your life and it's been there forever. And when you're talking about the flights when you were little, all I was thinking about is how we traveled when I was little was car trip, and I grew up in Oregon, and I used to love the smell of gas. You liked JetBlue, and I
yes,
liked gas.
yes,
But
yes.
because when we would get out of Oregon, in Oregon, they always pumped your gas for you. And so when we would travel in our car outside of Oregon, we would pump our own gas. And that was like the feeling of we're really traveling and getting away. And so mine was more gasoline scent. But I think that I'm just picturing that imagery and just the impact it had on you. And in my trainer and L&D life, we talk a lot about that scent as a memory and how that makes things impactful
Yeah.
because one scent can take you right back to that exact moment, and just appreciate you walking us through that because I was really getting
Well,
lit up
what
thinking about
happens
that.
is today as an adult, and what happened throughout adolescence and then my 20s, in the 30s and into my 40s, I continued collecting fragrance. I
Mm.
continued, and I didn't have just 2 or 3 bottles. I had many of the best sellers that today are vintage. And I search for them sometimes, and I buy them, and they take me back. Some of the, like my mom's perfume, my dad's perfumes, and mind you, I did not have an easy relationship with my dad, but his perfumes were incredible, and he had very good taste.
Mhm.
And um, I knew I had something. I knew there was something in there because I could smell different accords in the fragrance and in flowers. Like mimosa is one that well, we had mimosa trees, acacia trees in our town. And I remember telling my mom, that is in one of your perfumes. And then jasmine or rosemary, lavender, recognizing them in like the first time I smelled narcissus, I'm like, oh my God. Just so then there's this like I said, there's this. At some point I realized in the early 2000s, and I was still working in fashion. I during a summer that I was in between jobs, and I was interviewing for this big job that was going to come, and I was freelancing for an interior designer. She's very well known. She continues to be in business and a very talented person, and she had this lineup of candles in a tray on a table, and that was the table of her project and the candles were they were organized in a range of neutrals from black to ivory, white, passing through these beautiful shades of browns and cognac and camel and beige, and they were all different sizes and different brands. And I remember looking at that and thinking, wow, this must have taken her a lot of time to put together. This is a lot of shopping. There must have been maybe 15 candles there, something like that. They're all different heights. I'm like, this looks beautiful. It looks like out of a Calvin Klein or Donna Karan ad. And she said, yeah, I'm thinking about doing candles. And she said, well, don't you want to do something? Perhaps like let's work on drawings, doing some things. I was doing textiles for her and drawings. I started to put some ideas together, and then I thought, I'd like to do this for myself.
Mhm.
Because one thing is to think of the visual of it, which and this is where your own personality comes in. Because I didn't see myself so much with the range of neutrals the way she had them. For me, the colors. For me, what was more important were the smells, not so
Mhm.
much the color. I thought, I'll really think about the color later, after. And she had a visual idea in her mind, but then obviously, as with anything that you're going to think about doing in a project, I think of, if I get excited about seeing a candle in a beautiful box and it's beautiful vessel, and I get super and I buy it, and that's the number three there, the gender that gets excited, super excited about things. And knowing this about fashion, that clothing purchases are very emotional. Anything that has scent, anything that's smell related is also emotional. Even your baby wipes, even the wipes you have, cleaning products for your kitchen. These are all things that we pick consciously or unconsciously. Whether you spend 20 seconds or 3 minutes picking the spray at the supermarket that you're going to bring home, or you go back to buying online the one that you know you want, there's a conscious decision there. Most of us do that, but we don't pay attention to. So then scent is very powerful and it weaves everything we do, including when you start to learn the chemistry of scent and the chemistry of volatiles and how we are connected to the environment, to nature and the animals. It's mind blowing how it all works in perfect synchrony.
Yeah.
And we react to chemistry, molecules and components out in the air and out there that we don't smell them, but they affect our amygdala, they affect our brain, it's fascinating to me when I discover that many things, yes, we are affected by the smell of things, but there are many things behind that our nose doesn't get to smell. Perhaps our dogs smell, but we don't get to smell, but they still affect us. So then when these products come, this sample, but again, go back to the idea of
Yeah.
the samples brought over it and that frustration and that sadness, not of saying this is not what I wanted because I wanted something more personal. I thought this is not me. It is what I asked, but it's not me. So my husband, he doesn't talk a lot, but when he says something, sometimes it's like a dart that goes straight to the point. And he said, well, if you want to do this the way you really want to do it, you're going to have to learn perfumery by yourself. And just got up on the sofa and left. He left me
Just mic
there.
dropped.
And it was a November night at 11 o'clock at night, close to Thanksgiving. There was not cold. We were living on a 57th floor on this apartment that was like this glass box overlooking Midtown. And I thought, well, this is like a movie moment. And he left. I was silent. Daunting, Ali. Daunting, thinking, that cold that you get in your stomach, thinking, how am I going to learn perfumery? How am I going to read? That's when you realize this is a really serious trade. When you read, no, it's not that okay, you can settle for someone doing it for you. But what about if you push it a little further? And this is where it kind of like goes along with my personality type three, that I have to experience everything in order to see whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
And so then a few minutes later, he comes back. I don't even know how I'm going. He comes back, man. Went into the room. I don't even know how I'm going to do this. And he's like, well, start slow. Get the least expensive versions first and start to do your own blending. How difficult can that be? And you remember chemistry from high school. So again, in a few seconds, he dissected it to like any person that he works in fashion, that any person that would know or would think of putting a thought into action, breaking it down into pieces. So once you break it down, it becomes easier. Once you break something that seems to be unsurmountable. So then that's what I did. I spent 2 years
Yeah.
buying inexpensive fragrance oils, which is what many companies do,
Yeah.
blending them to see if I could reach the aromatic profile I wanted for my candles. And I created a little collection, a collection of scents, 5, 6 scents, 6 fragrances, all inspired in different moments from childhood. They're all childhood and adolescence. They're all
Mhm.
related. So then when I'm introducing the story, when I'm thinking about the story, I think my personal experience here is important, but there's a there's a social and cultural aspect to fragrance that's much bigger than me. I thought that as a number three, as a generator and as a maker, I love talking about myself. and I love talking about the things I like. But I thought this is just bigger than me. If I read, and again, I have no, this is no criticism. Perfectly fine if you have your brand and you talk about things from childhood. That's wonderful, great. For me, I realized that talking about things from childhood was not going to be enough. Because even when I was a kid, there were cultural differences in between the smells of the perfumes of my aunts and uncle, and my cousins on my dad's side and on my mom's side. My dad's side, Middle Eastern, with European thrown in, French Swiss thrown in the middle, Syrian Lebanese, and French Swiss. Rich fragrances, rich, my accent comes through. Rich fragrances, heavy fragrances. At his mom's house, I discovered basil and jasmine. She had a vine and jasmine. And again, I must have been 6 when I noticed the smell of that. And I noticed that the smell on the food, in the food, came from her garden. On my grandmother's house, on my mom's side, Italian, northern Italy, with a beautiful home, big yard, big backyard in their own orchard with fig trees and all of the vegetables for the house cultivated there. When you see how little it takes to have your own garden that will supply you an entire year, it's mind blowing how small it is in comparison to, like, walking into a supermarket and finding them. But the smells of an orchard and a garden and the combination of orange trees, peach trees, lemon trees, they bloom depending on the climate conditions. An orange tree can bloom throughout the entire year. So it's possible to have flowers and oranges at the same time, and with lemons too. And then the smell of fig leaves in the summer after a rain overtakes the entire garden. The same with tomato leaves. And the smell of peppers. The smell of peppers is not just on the peppers, it's also on the pepper leaves. So then all of these things informed my taste and what I like to eat and what I cook today. Everything that to this day, when I cook or when I work on something, I'm constantly thinking of the past. I'm past the nostalgia of it. I'm just very aware of where I come from. It's part of my day to day.
Yeah. Ricardo, I think that's so, and we talked about this a lot too in different segments, but I wonder, maybe I've never asked you, I also wonder what do you feel it is about yourself that you're able to, first of all, one, recall in such detail? That to me is not, I think that's quite rare, at least in the people I would, being able to recall. And I also, maybe I had, this is like a loaded question and multiple questions, but what it is that you think it is about you in particular that you're able to recall such detail and the association with all of these various smells. I mean, does that make sense what I'm asking? Because it's kind of a broader question, but there's so much in there that I find really fascinating to just hear you talk about the very specific details. But it seems there's almost no disconnect between the scent and the memory and the being able to call on the details of these memories and how it informs what you do today.
I can tell you that today I can. I discovered I have a facility for it. I discovered when you realize you have. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could call it a talent between quotations. I don't know if it's a talent, but I definitely haven't had it easier when it comes to recognizing smells. That's one thing. The moment that I smell something, it creates feeling. And I've got many weird smells in the chemicals and the essential oils that I have in my library. And some of them can smell disgusting to people, can smell really weird or really strong. And I love them. The weirder they are, the better for me. It's sort of like, because they also recall things like the smell of burnt tires or the smell of pavement. All those smells exist. Why? Because they are chemicals that are being emitted by products and materials and substances out there, and plants and trees and animals too. And then our industry can synthesize those and say, oh, that smell of this comes from that type of thing. So then there's something that I think happens, and this is, we get a little bit into science, is that for me, the way that it works is that when you smell something for the first time, that's different from everything else you smelled. I think there's a neural path that's created that will identify that smell. From what I know, there's the chemical composition of the smell gets stored in one part of the brain, and the memory of the moment gets stored in another part of it. So then that, reading that, learning about that, it kind of makes sense to me that we remember the smell, but then it takes us a little bit longer to remember where we smelled it or where is it from. So then if you grow up where it happened to me, that smells where the perfumes were an integral part of watching my parents get ready in the morning and then in the afternoon to go to work. In Argentina, you stop in the middle of the day for siesta. Only in Buenos Aires, it's 9 to 6. All the cities in the interior, they all close down. Kind of like Madrid. You close at noon and you open up at 4. Yeah.
Allie, you know what siesta is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take a
That's
nap. It's
checking.
the hour. Siesta, it's the hour between 12
Yeah.
to 3 or 12 and 4.
I love the story around it, Riccardo, though, because growing up in the States, we didn't have that wasn't a program for us when we were little.
No.
Napping.
Yeah,
No.
no.
Napping. Oh, when it's so
Yeah,
healthy to
napping
nap.
is for
Now you know as
children
an
in the
adult, it's
States.
like so nice. So
Yeah.
then let me just backtrack a little bit. Like I said, I knew from an early age that I was gay. I knew whether I wanted others to know or not. That was a completely different story. And that there's a lot of trauma
Yeah.
related to that. So then as an adult, you can, if you're forced, if things forces you to look back and say, hey, let's look at what happened in the past. A lot of it could be very painful. And where there's pain, there's room for growth. Where there's pain, there's like, oh, let me look at that. And then you can decide for yourself, sort of like what uh, Miranda says in Devil Wears Prada, Andra, you're a lot like me. You can see and decide for yourself. What I think is that looking back, you can decide whether you want to examine different parts of your childhood and adolescence with a practical eye. Do whatever, like I do what I thought for myself. Okay, do whatever you need to do to get over the feeling so that you can look at what happened and then extract from it for this, for today, for your, do something about it. If you don't look at it, nobody else is going to look and say, hey, there were these bad parts, but there was also this incredible part of your childhood and adolescence. And I get the chills thinking about it because only as an adult, I was able to recognize that. And for
Yeah.
that, today, every day, I'm really grateful because I did have incredible moments throughout my
Yeah.
these discoveries. So then today I can look back and think, oh, this is why I love these smells. This is why, and then the broader aspect of all of the other experiences I had throughout childhood and adolescence. So then suddenly, I swear, I mean, at least from my point of view, Ali, Michelle, what will happen is that all of the good parts will shine brighter, and all of the negative parts end up, I guess, all of the parts that caused you so much pain back then, that when now you remember, memories can incite feelings the moment you think of them. But what happens when you're able to modulate those emotions? What happens when you're able to, when you're in this path of self-discovery, which I can tell you that I don't think I could be, and I could have gotten so deep into perfumery without doing a parallel work on myself. Because there were aspects of my relationship with my dad that were not good. But I had to admit that he had a beautiful collection of perfumes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I've been getting them. I've been
Mm.
getting the vintage versions. So to me, it's a way of having compassion, seeing this side of him that and appreciate it, and then smell it today and say, wow, this is what he used to wear in the 70s and the 80s. And then, so then I think that there's a little bit of self-training also, Michelle, if you ask
Mm-hmm.
about modulating trying to pinpoint a moment in time and space in the past when I smelled something for the first time. And I call that a scent moment because it's a moment in time and space. And I'm able to go back and to pinpoint when was the first time. So then in perfumery, imagine doing that by multiply it by 2000,
Right.
because there's a technical aspect of how, when you're creating a new fragrance, what are the components you're going to bring? Because one thing that I do is that if I describe a scent pyramid, all the ingredients that I put in it, a scent pyramid is a marketing tool. It's a way to describe what's in the product, and then their impressions of the perfumer, or sometimes a marketing department describing what's in the fragrance to give that impression to clients, to customers, sort of like pinpoint. And today, it's been now what, a decade, that the scent pyramids, this has come to the front of, oh, what's in your perfume and whatnot. People love it's talking point, right? If I say that I put lavender in one of my I'm going to use the real lavender essential oil. And then I enhance it with aroma chemicals that are also part of the constitution of it, like linalool. More linalool makes it sweeter, stronger. More linalool acetate makes it sharper, more tannic. So then there's what I call a raison d'être, a reason to be. if I'm going to create a fragrance inspired in the Atlantic shores of South America, well, there are endemic species all along the shores. So then I'm going to pull from that, put those real ingredients, and what is that going to smell? So then each element, pretty much like what any perfumer will do, is that each building block has a reason to be there. Even if you're not going to smell it, then why put it? So then there's an intimate connection between what I put in the blend and the inspiration behind it. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna make something. I want to make a rose fragrance. Yeah, lovely. Let me make it. But what rose? Because by rose, I can go, to the supermarket and get a $12 rose candle. But what happens when you work with Rose Absolute? And is it from Morocco or Bulgaria or Turkey? So then what do all of these things tell me that I can then tell my customer?
Yeah, I love that. And I want to go back to also what you said about just the past emotions and the memories and being able to just the acceptance of the full breadth of the emotions that come up when you go back. And this is something you and I have talked about in the past too, is and something that stood out for me when we first started speaking is how you could take memories that maybe were complex, that they were conflicting, that maybe were, had a lot of emotional charge or negative memories, and then create something so beautiful from it. I just think that's so amazing because what you were saying, right, about when you're creating a fragrance, my assumption is that you have to continue to reintroduce this smell to yourself. And it's like almost bringing up this memory that over and over until you get it right. And so, how many times can you revisit this memory that maybe does have painful emotions or sad emotions associated with it? And still be and how often can it's almost like what comes up for me is almost like, how many times can I go through this, put myself through this suffering, through the scent of bringing up this old memory until I, like you said, do something different about it? What else is there? What am I going to do different? And for what I've noticed about you is you go in and you find that there's also more to the experience. There's such beauty in it, or there's things that have totally influenced the way you live your life, like this sense of luxury and elegance that kind of permeates through your brand is because even though, like you said, there's maybe associated some not so pleasant memories with your father, there's also just the fact that you were influenced by this kind of like dapper way of expressing yourself through style and through fragrance and showing up in the world in that way. And I just find that so fascinating to think of. And it is a self-discovery in so many ways, rediscovering yourself at different points in your life when you're at a point that you're ready to approach those and process those emotions. Like you said, doing it simultaneously with self work on yourself is really interesting.
Transforming that energy in a way,
Yeah.
and it almost, what's the word I'm thinking about? Exposure therapy, and maybe
Yes,
that's
yeah,
a
that's
little
what
bit
came up for me too.
extreme.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed, like, wow, your website, I went to it yesterday, and what just speaks to me so much is the amount of intentionality behind everything, and I'm getting
Yeah.
chills right now. I am obsessed, and I love that about your brand, and yeah, how you've kind of
Well,
transmuted one, that 5 line, and it makes very sense. I've been chomping at the bit to say this, is that this is you making it accessible for the collective of breaking it down.
Yeah.
I don't know chemistry. I don't know all of these things. I know a little bit about a lot of things. And this is your 5 line in motion. And then 2, just really that exposure therapy I was thinking of. Scents just so impactful. And I was living with someone, and after a Big Bang experience, toast, a certain type of bread reminded me of a past trauma living situation I was in. And I was just like, holy, I can't smell this bread right now. And so I think about you and really transmuting that energy. And in my world, I just ended up starting to buy the bread again. Like, nope, this memory is not going to take this bread away from me. But in that moment, I hadn't realized after that transition, I've always been prone to
yeah,
smell,
I can
very
tell you that
sensitive to smell. Go ahead.
I think, again, from my creative process, is that I have to look at nostalgia and not get sentimental about it. I have to, if I want to extract something from the past, there's a bigger component. What I was talking about a bit earlier is that for me to explain what I really feel about smells and what is the cultural aspect of them that I've seen that I kind of like broke apart is that there's something true to all of us here in the Americas is that we all come from somewhere, that we are descendants of people that came from somewhere else. And when you look at what happened 400 years ago with the era of expansion that was brought over by global trade, when all of the captains and conquistadores and discoverers set out sailing, which happened before Christopher Columbus, they brought they took the different continents, the culture where they came from. And they took from all of the other continents, culture, materials, food, ingredients, herbs, spices back to Europe. So there's a jarring aspect of civilization that we still suffer today, the scars of it. There's a jarring by these cultures from Europe, from the old world, to completely obliterate anything that was different and new and considered wild and savage. I acknowledge that. And obviously, I don't like it because I have part of that. Part of my background is also that in South America. But there's to me, the lesson to be learned out of all of that is that no matter what they try to do, it survived. Where I mentioned once to Michelle in the pen, no matter what we try to do, all of the indigenous tribes, and I get chills thinking about it, all the Precolumbine, they all survived throughout the generations of intermingling with all of the immigrants. And that intermingling created a different culture all across the Americas, from Alaska all the way down to Patagonia, Tierra del Fuego. So then the ones that came from Europe brought their culture and their likes in spices, in food, in brand, and in perfume too. So perfumery is a byproduct of that movement around the world because it didn't happen only between Europe and the Americas. It also happened between Asia and the Americas. One little example I can give you that's fascinating into itself. For 170 years, there was a trade route between Acapulco and Manila called El Galeón de Manila. Galeón is the Spanish word for big boat. It would take 3 months one way and 4 months the other way to go across the Pacific. That's how pepper trade was traded between. That's how cinnamon came. That's how many flowers and plants came to the Americas. Not from Europe. People think that they came from, but no, there was this big trade that very people know about. And well, the same trade routes you had them between Europe and the Caribbean, Europe and North America, and Europe and South America, and then Europe and Africa and Asia, Middle East and China. They were all interconnected. So all of these things suddenly in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, people had a far wider array of species and perfumery materials. How to season food and how to perfume yourself were very tight connected. Because you used a lot of natural materials back then. You didn't have a way to synthesize things. That came out in the 1850s. So then I thought to myself, how much there's a bit it's big, all of this is bigger than me. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than my memories that are so nurtured and I'm so sensitive to them. And I'm still like you said, it takes exposure therapy to smell something and eventually you don't get the chills anymore because you're starting to look at, okay, how am I going to put this in a candle or in a room spray or in a you see you break it down and then you discover out of the rose or out of mimosa or out of narcissus, what are the real chemicals that make it smell like honey in narcissus, for example. So then you discover there are phenylacetates. And then you can buy the phenylacetates already, and you can buy it natural or synthesized. Is there a difference between natural and synthesized? I can tell you now, and I would love to publish this everywhere. No, there's no difference. Why? Because for a molecule, a hexane ring to smell like phenylacetate, it has to be exactly the same ring, the same molecule. So there's no difference between a molecule of natural origin and one that's synthesized. The difference is that the synthesized is more sustainable, and you can work with both. That's what I call responsible sourcing. It's where you go to the source and how do, is it traced? Are you going to prepare a product that's traceable and sustainable where you're not, contributing to a market that's decimating species? But this exchange of species that I'm talking about, it's something that started to happen 2,000 or 3,000 years ago with incense, with myrrh.
Does this, Ricardo, go to? I was so interested when I was reading through that you use real materials. And as somebody who hasn't had exposure to the luxury perfuming, this is all news to me. And so is this that area that you're talking about, the difference between
Yes,
using real
yes,
materials and
yes.
the benefits to
And I'm
it?
going to share, but I'm going to tell you something that I know you're going to identify with and you're going to laugh out loud. I felt that all the candles I was buying out there, they had like some sort of a little dirty secret about them, and I couldn't pinpoint what it was. And it took me a little bit of experience in the industry, blending my own fragrances to realize what was going on. What was that I didn't like about it? There was a part of it that I thought this is not fully authentic. But that's for myself. I have nothing against people going, if you want to go buy whatever brand you buy, whatever you did, go ahead. There's an aspect of this sort of like when you look at a Chanel, if you buy Chanel product, you look at a bag and you're like, what do you expect it and think, was this really worth it? $5,000? Well, kind of like that, a little bit. So then with the product development aspect of doing home scented, home fragrance scented vehicles. The words are very technical. A scented vehicle is any type of medium, any type of material that has a smell that it's functional as a product for the house. Let's remember that a candle, it's meant to be a functional product, a deodorizer. It's different than a perfume. A perfume for application, a personal application, has a completely different way of production, and it's a fashion accessory. It's very cultural as well. It's far more sophisticated than a candle. Let's remember that a candle, you buy a candle because you want it to smell in a room, not in you. So then there's all of these dry components, the materials you have to buy for it, the wax, you have to decide the vessel, you have to decide the wick. The wick is intimately associated with the size of the candle itself because you want the wick to have sufficient power when you're burning it for it to burn from edge to edge off the top of a vessel. You want to create a full molten pool. There's still the myth that the smell is diffused through the flame. No, the smell comes from the evaporating of the molten wax. That's what's evaporating all the volatiles of all of the fragrance plant. So in talking with a supplier of wax, she says to me, no, the one thing you don't do is you don't put naturals in a candle. And you can't say no to a number three. You can't say no, you can't do that.
That's very true. You cannot say no to a 3 line because
The moment, yeah.
my husband says, just let me do it how I want to do it. And then I say, okay.
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You're going to identify what all of this big story I'm telling you to arrive at the concept of, well, the moment that someone tells you, no, you can't do that, that is the button you're going to go and press.
Yeah. Just let me figure it out for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Oh, how dare her. I thought, no, I want to use the real thing. And then I showed it to my husband, and he's like, well, what else are you going to use if it's not the real thing? Again, and he turned around and he laughed. We're in the kitchen of that apartment. And it's sort of like,
Another
those
mic
little
drop,
drops
just leaving
Yeah.
you with.
of wisdom. What are you going to use if it's not the real thing?
I could use his brain power sometimes to just get me out of my head to mic drop, and he can leave after that too.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like
very
what you get.
Aries too.
We get very close. He's an Aries, right? And you
Uh,
don't you have an Aries in your life too, right? And it's like,
I
that-
didn't want to get into. I was earlier. I was like, I can't wait to hear how
what
your
he is.
husband's signs and energies show up.
Well, no, what happens is that we get very close to the things we do. There are children. So then you feel so offended when someone criticizes it. But then once you're doing this for real and serious, after, everybody loves everything. And when everybody loves everything, you don't get real feedback. When everybody loves everything about you, it becomes a little boring. It's okay. No, I mean, say, oh, it smells nice. Well, okay, what do you smell in it? I don't know. How about jasmine? Oh yeah, you're right. It's jasmine. So then when I talk to my clients and friends, which I've been doing now since 2018, since I started to do the candles and just to give to friends, and suddenly they wanted to buy. And I don't have thousands of clients. If anyone thinks that this is a profitable business, they have to think it twice before coming into it. And it's a hobby that became an expression that became this beautiful range of products, this collection that I prepared today. But the practical side of it is that I'm taking it with the exposure that it's slowly starting to get. I'm going to take it somewhere else. But the practical aspect of making something that's supposed to work demands research and demands getting feedback. And when you start to get feedback, you discover what you have in common with people. So then this is what it ties into scent as a cultural expression. Most of us, we love jasmine. Most of us, we love basil. Most of us, we don't like the smell of decomposing things. If you're a perfumer, when you get into perfumery, you're going to end up loving the smell of decomposing things. Why? Because in all flowers, there are molecules that smell like decomposing things to attract insects, pollinators, and birds. Pollinizers. The fact that we smell some of them, we can identify some of them, but most of them we don't. There's one famous one called indole. It smells like bad breath or mothballs. And it's crazy how mothballs and bad breath kind of like smell similar when you have the isolated molecule. Indole is in all white flowers, basically jasmine, tuberose, gardenias. It's in all flowers to begin with, but mostly white flowers. So then indole is also in our poop. It's fascinating how chemistry works. So then there's an aspect of all of this where I thought, why can't I use the real thing? And it demands a lot of research. It's the same as using naturals in perfumery because naturals will vary from batch to batch. There's something called consistency that you need to have for production. They also burn at different rates, right, than synthetics. It's far easier to make a candle or to make a fragrance just with synthetics from a performance point of view. When you start to add naturals into it, and in a fragrance, in a candle, they tend to become thicker. And the thicker your fragrance oil is, for example, with the resin, if you want to use frankincense, it's an essential oil, but it still has particles of resin in it. It can grow the wick. So it's about how much of it are you using and how it is diluted before putting it in the blend and what size of wick you're going to have to put in there. It all requires years, not days, not weeks, years of research into what is the best frankincense oil for the blend I want to use for this one. And I have several frankincense oils for different blends. And then prepare the blend and then pour it into the molten wax, prepare the candle, and then burn the candle. What happens if the size of the wick, all the packed paper inside of the wick doesn't allow the molten pole to reach the edges? You're going to create tunneling. So you have all this excess wax that it's discarded. Wax has memory. The moment you started to burn on that tunnel, it will continue to burn just on that tunnel and leave all that excess. So what do I have to do? I have to melt the entire thing and re-pour it on a different wick. In terms of smell, that blend is already lost because I'm remelting the wax. I'm affecting the original aromatic profile. Now it's become just a wick test to see what the size is that I need to use. And if I cannot breach with one wick, maybe I have to put 2 weeks, which is something I don't really like to do, but that's why you have 2 weeks. Sometimes on a candle when you see it. Why using naturals? Because on this path of self-discovery, I realized that lies and deceit were a big component of how I grew up. It's as simple as that. And I took these dynamics, like most of us do, into adulthood. There's a part of it that's the mask that we put every day to hit the pavement. And today I can discern that that's what I do, and I'm conscious of that. But once I decided to live my life without lies, without anything to hide, the biggest task was for me to transform everything in my life to be authentic, to be real. Otherwise, why bother? If I'm not going to have a real conversation with a therapist about what happened or how I feel, then why bother having that conversation? If I'm not going to be authentic about how I feel or what I think with my partner or with my friends or with relatives when I'm discussing something, then what I'm doing. So then there's the realization suddenly there's a point in your life, happened to me in my 40s when I decided to leave fashion, that there were too many masks. And I had a life for the outside and a life inside. And my life inside at home consisted of a lot of distractions, a lot of traveling, shopping, I was very lucky to have all of those resources with my partner. But coincidentally, the moment I decided to stop and to analyze all that, well, what are we getting out of the summer shares? What are we getting out of this concept of, saving to buy this determined size of apartment in the city or whatever it is? What is it that we really want? So then when you start in that process, you realize that there are many things that you adopted for yourself that they're not even yours. They're from a culture. They're from keeping up with the Joneses. They are from, as we say, they are from your social circle. There are things that you learn at home when you're supposed to be successful, when you're supposed to achieve maturity in your career, when you're supposed to launch a business, in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s.
It just doesn't stop what you should be doing, right? And I think that will really resonate with a lot of our listeners is that image of the masks. And think energetically, I'm seeing a lot of, and I think it'll be helpful for our listeners to hear your story as well and expand through you, because I think that resonates with a lot of people, this mask that they wear at their professional job, and then the mask of who they really are. And it sounds like you're starting to infuse your authenticity. Infuse,
Yeah.
no pun intended there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Infused, right?
The sense of real materials
Yeah.
being important in that. So,
Yeah, I think one of the first questions I ever asked you, Ricardo, is like, what I think I asked you, what do you value the most in this life? And you said, without even a beat, you said honesty. And then from there, we just continue to just revisit all the ways that, like, deconstruct where in your life wasn't authentic, wasn't honest and real to you. And all of these masks started to fall away. And as Ali and I have talked about, as you and I have talked about, it's like those things that didn't align with that sense of honesty and authenticity and integrity were started to be really repellent to you. You were like, I don't want this anymore at all. And the other thing I think is so fascinating, one is just how that's really, really threaded through everything you do. Like, going back to the rose, right? It's like if you're going to choose to base something off of the scent of a rose, you're going to not just choose any rose. You're going to look at what is the story? Where is this from? What are the ties? And what is everything else that might be surrounding where that rose exists in the world? And what does that mean to me? And I think that's really interesting because the second thing, and maybe not in exact sequence, but the second thing you told me when we first met, well, we met a long time ago, but
Mhm.
we met over decade ago, but we met over a year
Well,
ago
we had
and
different lives.
different lives.
Different lives.
And you said, I want to shift the paradigm of the fragrance world.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating because over time, I feel like the shifting of the paradigm, first, it was like this big task of shifting all of the things in the fragrance and the perfume and the candle world that is just, without getting too deep into it, it's like you said, a lot of people, and there's no right or wrong, will go to someone else and have you, base an idea off of a great marketing idea and then build from that versus like, scent and memory and meaning and build from that from the inside out. And so it's almost like going from shifting the paradigm as this objective and this desire, which is so 3-5. Like it's so 5 line to want to have a seed planted in you that you want to be a part of shifting the paradigm. Like that is so 5 line, the heretic of human design. And it started as this bigger task of wanting to shift the paradigm of what was happening around you. And now it's like this such an inside shift of how you view everything, of like shifting the paradigm, just starting with yourself. And I find that really interesting because I see it happening so much. And then the last thing I'll say about this is that we started this series with Karmic Mirror on where we have a tarot reader and she's a channel and she reads tarot. And I know you have a tarot reader as well, which is so fascinating whenever there's always such synergy with the messages they give you and the things that you and I have talked about in the past. And one of her recent poll for this eclipse season, which was very recent, was Sunday was the eclipse, was talking about releasing these notions that we have about what success looks like because it looks so different to every person
Yeah.
and releasing these ideas of what we believe success is supposed to look like. And that's everything that you've been saying too, is like success used to maybe look like X, Y, Z, but also was not very satisfying at the end of the day. It didn't hold authenticity. It didn't hold honesty for you.
Now, let's keep in mind that what I make is very superficial and it can be considered very shallow and it's a necessity, right? What we call a necessity. They're completely superfluous items. They're again, to me, when I light a candle, there's 5 seconds to 10 seconds between me and the candle and what I want, what is the intention behind lighting that candle. And then someone will come along and say, oh, but it's just a candle. Like I've heard people say, why would you bother doing all of that? From the person that said, oh, you should never use naturals in the candle. Here we are, I use a lot. I mean, it could be 20%, it could be 30, it could be 60% of naturals in a blend.
yeah.
Each one of my candles has 25 grams of fragrance in it. It's roughly 10% of the content,
What's
12%.
industry standard for I wouldn't know the difference, right?
3%.
Of how much fragrance?
Yeah, so you said you
3%.
put 25. What
Yeah. Well, 25 grams, it's roughly, it's 10%. If I have a candle that is 250 grams, 25 grams is 10% of that. The industry standard is 3 to 6%. I can tell you from all the brands out there that I know, that I used to buy, that I used to be such a fan. Once I discovered how little fragrance they use, by ways of being in the industry, you get to discover all of these things. You realize, oh man, this is all just marketing, which is fine. You can build a multi-billion-dollar business around that. Great, fantastic. For me, it's not authentic. For me.
the caveat here is not shaming anyone in the
No,
industry.
yeah.
It's just I think it's a standout for those who are interested, and me being one of those people. I also think about we had Melissa Lambor, who is an astrocartographer, and she talked about in our episode of infusing energies. So we get different types of energies from different parts of the world, and part of really connecting with those energies can also be through eating foods, scents. So when you're
Yes.
talking, I think
Yes.
about you using these natural ingredients, and I'm getting chills, which is a great sign of the connection there.
Yes, you
That
have a connection with it, obviously. Otherwise, you wouldn't be. Your amygdala wouldn't be didn't think ding,
yeah.
ding, 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 ding. It's
So what
telling you something.
you're putting into your candles is a real it's a I think like labor of love is not the right expression I'm looking for right now. What I'm thinking about is just the opportunity to get energies from different parts of the world through the creation and what you're putting together, which is beautiful.
There's an aspect of aromatherapy in all of this, and artisan art, the craft. I don't know if artisanhood exists, the word, but
We make up words all the time.
yeah, there is
Yeah.
a well, there's a concept of perfumery as an art. Yeah, maybe, but you ask that from a nose. You ask a perfumer, someone that does this all day, and they're gonna, I'm a perfumer. They're gonna say with that French accent, and they're gonna say, no, I know chemistry and I blend things. I just most perfumers are not gonna consider them. One thing is the all the marketing around and this cult of personality, which I also don't like that much. And I'm sure we've had conversations about this. Is how am I going to promote the brand without promoting me? Because I don't believe in the cult of personality. I believe in the product. If you're going to buy my product, buy it because you like the product. If you can't afford the product, my product, then I would love it if you tell me I want to have one of your candles, but I can't afford $100 a candle. Do you know how many times that happened since I started? Zero. Never. I would love it if someone says. And then maybe also I don't do sales, but maybe also because I own my brand, I own my company, I can surprise someone with not a 10% discount, a better discount than that. Why? Because I can afford to do it. And I know that if I give you something, like once a girl that became a police officer, that's a neighbor, she said, I'm going to have to try your candles. And she bought one of my candles, and I discovered that she was in police academy, and I decided to bring it to her in person. I drove 20 miles to bring the candle. I gave her an extra candle of my casual, the travel tints. She was so floored by it because now she had another candle for her bathroom, and she lives with her mom and whatnot. And she and I, we couldn't be from more different. Yeah, but we're still in contact. We became friendly. Like, it just gives me pleasure to say to someone, here, have it, enjoy it. But don't let what you see in the website. I wish someone would just send me a text and say, I'd love to try your candles, but I think it's a lot of money, whatever. Something like that. But I don't get that. Why? Because people are afraid of saying those things. Because people are afraid of luxury. There's a fear that luxury is unreachable. And there's also a fear that luxury today, we've been experiencing that luxury, there's a certain component of fakeness in it. So then that's the paradigm that Michelle was talking about, that I'm thinking, why am I not going to give you real essential oil that I know below a certain concentration in the candle could probably induce this feelings of calmness. And it could probably help cleanse the room or your kitchen or your bathroom. And if I'm going to use real frankincense and cedarwood essential oil, let's look up at the qualities. They're grounding oils. They make you feel grounded and safe and secure and whatnot. There are all of those attributes of essential oils. Many of them are rooted in real chemistry and how they act. I can give you a simple example. Flonase, the nasal spray, has phenylethyl alcohol in it, and it smells like roses. Phenylethyl alcohol is a chemical that it's part of the smell of roses. Phenylethyl alcohol in the mucus of inside of our head, yeah, our nose, has a calming and anti-inflammatory capacity on our skin mucus. Like that, out of maybe 30,000 different materials isolated from nature that have, and you can read them. You can look them up. You can learn about them. So it's fascinating when you realize, "Oh, I can use a little bit of this on this. And hopefully someone is going to get a little bit more out of the experience of lighting the candle." Because all about that is for me to say, oh, I'm going to give you the best real thing I can afford to give you for this. And this to me is real luxury.
Mhm.
This to me is real luxury. And it's not so much tied into a price point, but it's tied into this intention of saying it is a shallow product. Because these are some of the first things that go out the door when someone needs to save money. But at the same time, they are emotional purchases when we're out there shopping. And there are many people that are aficionados to this, and like me, that they have a different candle for every room. So going into this, I learned and accepted and learned about this aspect of an emotional purchase that I thought for myself, how do I want to tackle this, and what do I want to make that then I will be proud of when I out there in the market? How is my product going to be different from somebody else's, which is a USP from a marketing point of view? It's the unique selling point, right? A USP. What is your POV? Also another acronym, point of view. So you have, for a product to be accepted by a store or by a buyer and then by your customer, it should be different from everything else that's on the shelves. So then how you're explaining, so then if not, like I said to myself, well, then I'm just making more junk. And just to make junk, I'm just going to make more junk, what I consider, I have no judgment against what other brands do and what other people like to buy. And then, yeah, there are candles for $20, $30, $40, $50. We have a wide range. Who am I to say if this one is better than the other? There's a product development aspect of analyzing the product that I can say objectively, this has a lot of diluents in it. Objectively, this doesn't do what it says it's doing. Objectively, this is a very inexpensive ceramic vessel. Why are you charging all of this money for it? This is costing you 80 cents per candle to make, and you're selling it at $80. Those are the things I question for myself, not however others want to run their business and however people want to pick and whatnot. Hopefully, your listeners out of this would come out and say, let me pick a little bit, let me spend. If I'm going to spend $40 in a candle, let me spend another 30 seconds looking at where are they made, looking at the labels, looking at asking the salespeople if they know about it. Compare it with another. If you're in a store, compare it with another brand. Today we have the ability of having all of these choices. You walk into a pharmacy, those small town pharmacies that have that sell a lot of cosmetics, aside from having the real pharmacy, right? They have all cosmetics, and they have shower gels, and then they have now candles. Or a specialty store that just sells fragrances. You have to have. If I walk into an environment, a potential store, I would hope that they have other brands to sell. I wouldn't want to be the only brand. That makes sense from a marketing perspective. It behooves me so that their clients have more choices to pick from.
Have options.
Whether they decide for my brand or for somebody else's brand, it helps educate them and then make a decision for it, because they take that candle home, and what happens? I've heard from many people that they don't want to burn my candles because they smell too good, and they smell strong anyway if you don't burn
I've
them.
definitely been in that boat where I've received a really nice candle, and I'll save. This is part of my work when you're talking about this luxury is, what are you saving the luxury for? You are worthy of luxury every
Every
day.
day.
But I
Every
will
day.
say that
Yeah.
some of those candles I am guilty of. Let me save this for when I have company coming over.
I
And
have a little tip for you if you like that.
of course
Get
I would love.
yourself a candle lamp.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon. Sorry.
That's okay.
So like you can buy
Find you a
online.
candle lamp wherever they may be.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
buy.
totally.
You can get it for $20. You can get it for $100. If you want to get something that goes with your contemporary decor, and then while this a candle lamp it warms up the surface, the top surface. You don't have to burn it. right? You
Mhm.
don't have to burn the candle. It will extend a few hours. And when I say a few hours, probably between 5 and 10 hours more the life cycle of your candle. When you buy a candle, you want the candle to last at least 40 hours when let's say burning time, when it says on the, and by the size of it, which is the size of a tumbler, that's like a single old fashioned type of size, of like the size of a cup of water, that should mostly last 40 hours. The bigger it gets, the more it lasts. But there's some brands out there that they say that they have 80 hours, 100 hours. So you have to have a really big candle, like a pound wax, a big candle for it to
Yeah.
last more than 100
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Only so much physics wise and chemistry wise you can ask out of a candle that's 3 inches in height or 4 inches in height and 2.5 or 3 inches in diameter. Now,
Ricardo, sorry to cut you off, but I love what you said about, this is a shallow product, right? Because it just reminds me of one, there's this sense of when we can move past the polarities of something, right? Because this candle, for you, anyways, exists as yes, a shallow. It's not a must have item that you can't live without, you can't survive without. And at the very same time, on the other end of the spectrum, for you and how you create your candles, it holds such deep meaning and it holds memory and it holds integrity of the way in which you source the products and how you go about creating it. So it holds these extreme opposites. And it almost, I guess this is also something this is a theme that's been coming up a lot. I mean, call it eclipse season, maybe call it the shifting of the paradigm across the world right now of just breaking down of old structures of belief systems. But I do think there is this really cool sense of transcending past these opposites that both can exist. It can be this lovely item, this object that you buy that doesn't necessarily, that can feel very shallow, and it can also hold such deep, intense meaning and honesty and transport you. And I really love that. So I wanted to shout it out before I forgot my thought because
yeah,
um,
there's an aspect of
there is,
this of I can tell you what I think it is. I think you and I discussed before. There's an aspect of letting go of it.
yeah.
When you are working in product development, which is what you do when you're working in interiors, you're decorating, right?
Mhm.
If you have to get something custom made for a client, or if you're at home and you decide to get a kitchen, your custom kitchen, or you're doing product development, you're developing that product. So when you're working on a product, it has to have a function, it has to have a reason for being. It has a budget. It has materials that you're going to choose for their durability and for their aesthetic value. And there's a time that will take you to get there. There's a calendar to prepare that. So then the same thing happens in fashion. There's a product development calendar. You pick the fabrics, you pick the threads, you pick the print, and then you design, you do a stylized sketch of it. And then I learned how to do technical design, how to spec the garment, how to give it the measures that it should have for a woman for a size 8, for example. I did mostly women's wear. So then you create a spec sheet and then someone creates the pattern and then you get the sample made. So then that fits into a little capsule of, let's say, blouses, skirts or pants or whatnot. And then you have a capsule of prints and then you have a capsule of sweaters. You choose the yarn and you choose the stitch and you choose the shape of the garment and you create a sweater. So then there's a product development aspect of all of this. The moment that you created an entire collection, you present it to buyers and you sell. There's a lot of intention from a designer point of view into everything they're doing to put that on the wall so that then later you can go to a website and buy a sweater, even if it's for a discount from a pile of lump, like from a pile of stuff. Miranda Priestley says in Devil Wears Prada,
Mhm.
pile of that you pick that sweater, that lumpy sweater from a pile of stuff. She says that. Okay, even if that sweater was $20, somebody had to think about it.
Right.
So then that's where you get the intention. But at the
Yeah.
same time, that someone has to have the ability to let it go. Why? Because there's another season ahead. So then I put all of this intention and all of this authenticity, and it's just a candle. Like I've been told more than once, and I turn around and say, well, maybe it's just a candle for you. And then I turn around and leave. Maybe it's just a candle for you. Great. I don't know if it's just a candle, like you say, if you're going to spend $100 in it.
Mhm.
It's not just a candle if it's $100. Maybe it's just a candle if it's Yankee Candle and you have it in the bathroom. Nothing against it. It does its purpose. It's functional, right? But I have to be able to let it go, to let go of all my intimate connection with it the moment that it passes to the hands of a customer. So then when does it work? When do I theoretically make it work? When you love the smell of orange blossoms, and I can tell you, I have a candle that I use real neroli, the oil of orange. And I also, not only neroli, but I'm also using neroli absolute, which smells woodier. It's much richer and it's very expensive. And I can say, yeah, I put the real neroli and neroli absolute in that candle. So it smells, and it's a very rich version of orange blossom. You like orange blossom? There you have it. You like a green candle, tomato leaves? Well, I have Estancia, that a candle that it's all green, and it has real rosemary oil in it. It has real tomato absolute, tomato leaf absolute from Egypt, and so forth. So then, the part of offering the best that I can possibly offer, there's got to be in there a component of letting it, of like in the same way that I let go of the nostalgia in order to prepare something that's inspired in the past.
Yeah.
And I am totally fine with it. I wasn't fine with it at the beginning, and I kept on also from a costing perspective, thinking, why am I going to do this? And then, like my husband said, well, why not? If you're going to claim it has lavender, why can't you put the real lavender in it? Oh, because of performance and because of there's a, yes, there's an aspect of studying how you're going to put natural and how they're going, but that's where you have your own research and your testing for, which is what I constantly do.
Yeah.
So that,
There's a you mentioned to me before too that and this is what I think is comes to a lot is just that there's a part of you that you impart, and I think this is what I mean when I think of this veil that's lifting, or to use other language, the shifting of the paradigm is it's less about the object itself, and it has everything to do with the person and the integrity and the essence behind it. It's everything that you put into it, and less, right? Because there are thousands and thousands of candles, but what stands out is, like you said, it's the USP, but truly it's the energy that you bring to it, which I love so, so much. And I think more and more, maybe not on a grand scale, but I think if you are seeing it, if that's how you live your life, we're starting to see that more through so many different industries of it's less about just this mass creating the thing just to have the thing or basing it off of a marketing plan. It's so much to do with the integrity, the authenticity of the person or the creator behind it. And I think that's what you do. And I just want to ask you a question because we're going to start closing out our with some questions because we could talk here all day. We could be here for hours, and then my dogs will be so mad at me and scratch the door down. But you mentioned in your intake form about rediscovering yourself in your 40s and your 50s and really thriving as a late bloomer. And I love what you said about staying in your own lane. I read this quote yesterday that said, if you stay in your own lane, there's less traffic. But I wanted to ask you, what do you say or what would you tell someone who, for them, feels like it's too late to begin again or begin a new path? What would you tell someone?
first off, it's not too late according to who? Who told you?
Who told
Is
you?
that really what you believe, or is it something that you caught from social media or from your mom, your dad, your sister, your super successful friend, neighbor, ex-coworker, husband? No, we tend to compare our timeline with the timeline of others. And I can tell you that I actively started on this at 45, and I'm 54 now. It's been 10 years. And 9, but I'm on the 10th year with the project, right? So then I look back, and it's taken me all of these years growing up to be in my mid-50s to understand the concept of compressing a timeline. Because I look back and I don't remember, I have to make a little bit of an effort. I don't remember all the steps. I just like I think I mentioned this to you a few days ago when I said sometimes I look back and I don't know how I got here, but I got here, and it was a long it's a long thread. But I don't remember many of the details that I do remember when I look at a formula that I wrote for the first time in 2019, 2018 or something that I wrote a while ago, and I'm thinking, and then I look at drawings that I did in 2015 for the concept of the dark navy boxes of my brand and how I wanted the logo to be. And there's that whole aspect of the visual part of the brand too, right? So then pick a lane. Pick a lane means decide what is it that you like, decide what is it that you want. And I don't know if I would say my fear, but I don't want to reach 70, which is 15 years down the road for me, and look back and say, I didn't try that? Why I didn't try that? Why I could have tried that? There's a practical side of it that is the pragmatic side of it is to consider our life expectancy. It used to be much lower. Today we're thinking that yeah, we're going to live into our mid 80s and mid and 90s. Some people, many people are reaching mid 90s and late 90s. So if you're in a conundrum where if you arrive at a crossroads in your life where you look back and you say, I'm not really satisfied with all of this anymore. I want to live, I want to have a different life. Or I don't like this anymore. Or I thought I liked this, but I don't. It's totally okay to look at 20 years of your life. It's totally okay and say, I love this. Lived it. I enjoyed it. It was wonderful, but today I want something different. It's totally okay to look back and say, because the first thing that people will say, others may say around you is, oh my God, what are you going to do? Well, I don't really know what I'm going to do right now. That is so loaded.
And then everyone comes, they have lots of solutions for you and
All of these
ideas though,
ideas.
right?
No, yeah, people will say, "Oh, why don't you start your own business?" People have no idea. When, oh, start your own business.
Do this, do that, and
Yeah,
then
it is so
you're
easy to say,
getting
but
away
then
from your authenticity.
you know what you want. You know if it is if you want to launch a brand of new popcorn, flavored popcorn. You know if you want to launch a new type of baby wipes, moist wipes. I think that there's a market for all of these things. You want to start a line of hats. You want to start a new clothing brand. You want to start whatever it is that you really like. Just first ask yourself, what is it that I really want to do? What is the timeline that I have? And then there's also I think I mentioned this to you, Michelle, that my husband once said, you're now one of his other drops of wisdom is that you're never going to be a dictate. Well, we were having a discussion about the investment for the whole year. That's another thing that I do is that I plan a budget from year to year. I see how much I spend on this and how much I sell because we present this to my accountant, and then I have an idea of how much I want to spend the following year. And so then there's I get invited to go to fairs and trade shows in different parts of the world. So then that's when one time he said, well, how much is this all of this is going to cost? And what do you really want it for? Do you want to really go or do you want to put it on your social media that you went? You're never going to be a diptic. And he was well, that hurt. But he was right because I may have wanted to be a diptic 10 years ago. It's been now at least 3 years that I want to have nothing to do with that because that's not what I do. It's the fragrance, the packaging, the whole thing. There's so many things that I thought were really cool about this particular brand years ago. And today it's like, so then think for yourself and then think of the aspect of the private aspect, the practical aspect of launching a new business. Does it have or starting a new career? Does it have a reason to be? How are you going to market the product or market yourself? Is this something that you really want to do as a hobby or do you want to support yourself with this? If I wanted to be a detective, I'd be thinking of becoming a millionaire. I'd be thinking of supporting myself with this. And I'm not in the stages of supporting myself with it. So there's a part of it that I have to be honest with myself and then stay in my lane. Why? Stay in my lane means focus on what my inspiration is and what I want to do, regardless of what other people are doing in the same field. Because eventually, in the noise out there, which is something you mentioned, there are thousands of candles and all that. Eventually, if you're authentic about what you're doing, you're going to be recognized. You're going to be recognized among your peers, and it will start to get spread. It doesn't happen in the timeline that others may tell you that it will. It may happen, it may take longer, but the satisfaction of staying in your lane and doing it your way and having how should I put having an objective with this, the practical objective. I don't know if I will ever be in 400 doors around the world like some of these brands are. I can't possibly think of competing with that size of company. In order to do that, I would have to be okay with outside investment. And I am completely self-funded, my husband. We declined outside funding 3 times in the story of the creation of this brand. That's a route that people pick. I chose to not to do it because then I could have complete creative control over it. Will it ever happen that I get another offer? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe, but I'm not looking for it. Why? Because I don't derive financial success out of it. I don't think making more money is going to make me feel more successful, right? I don't. So that maybe what you want to change your career into being a yoga instructor. Do you want to do it as a hobby or do you want to support yourself? I can tell you, yeah, you'll probably be able to make a living if you teach at an institute and then you give private classes and then all of these things learn about this industry or this profession you want to get into as much as you can. Learn what you can bring into it and how you can make it your own, how you can make it unique. What is your unique selling point for someone to come? So then when someone comes to you, they're not going to care that you're 65 and you're giving your yoga classes. Who's going to care? So then all that internal dialogue of telling yourself, oh, it's too late, who's going to pay attention to it? Nobody's listening to it. It's a dialogue that you have inside of your mind. And if
Yeah.
someone comes and tells you, well, you're too old to start doing this, I would slap that person across their face and say, very dare you? Oh, according to who? Yeah, it's sort of like, oh, well, you're going to do this now at this age? Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Because it's their timeline, not yours. It's okay, tell me if you haven't, if you do yoga. I've been to classes where the person is in her 70s, the woman, so I'm sitting there, and they're incredible, giving you an incredible yoga class or Pilates, and then that they're, in a different stage in their life. And I love that there's people that have discovered a new passion or finally given themselves without asking for the permission of others, given themselves the permission to do something different when they're a late bloomer. Give
Yeah.
yourself, and it doesn't have to be something fancy. I pick something that is, yeah, you can consider it as fancy because of the wall of fragrances and all of that. It's incredible. It's incredibly sophisticated, and I had to learn a lot in order to be able to say I'm making this fragrances, the formulas myself. Other people choose a different path, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But if you think that 2 or 3 years learning a new profession, what is that compared to the next 20 or 30 years of your life? If I wanted to go and become an architect, which is another passion I have, I can still think, oh, architecture college will probably be 4 to 5 years. I'll graduate by 60. I'll still have to live with myself until I'm 83, 84, 85. That's 25 years of profession.
There's
Think
this
about
this
that.
sentiment that keeps popping up for me, in my life, and as you're speaking, it's that we determine the what. So what we want to do, who we want to, where we want to go, and let source, energy, whatever that may be, take care of the how of how we're getting there, because that can look very different. And what is just such a standout for me in this conversation with you is that on the backside, there is a lot of self-introspection going on for you, and that intentionality of everything you're doing. And as we close out, I think it's a really good time to ask a question that we love to ask our guests is, what does self-love mean to you, Ricardo?
What does it's a loaded question. But it's simple. There are multiple aspects, different aspects that for my daily form are part of my daily routine. And there are things I do for self-love. For example, it's taking a nap. That's the practical side of it. Self-love is also watching what I eat and how much I eat. Gratification has been a common thread throughout the decades of my life. So then today I end up asking myself, do I really want to eat that entire pizza? Are 2 slices going to be enough? There are all of these practical parts of self-love. And then the spiritual side of all of it is authenticity and intention. How do I want this week to be? How do I want my day to be? Creating a peaceful, I have 3 dogs and my husband. That's our family. Creating a peaceful environment and being responsible for that at home is this daily self-love for me. Creating a safe environment for my dogs to thrive immediately our discussions, our exchanges of ideas at home are calm, because if not, they irritate our dogs. And one might say, oh my God, you're not arguing because the dogs, well, maybe part of it, because they go crazy barking. So then that is a small, tiny way of acknowledging that I'm creating for my dogs and for my husband a different environment from what I was exposed to when I was a kid
Beautiful.
in terms of creating it from the point of view of intention and authenticity. What do I want to bring into my day? And then you were just talking about the house. Don't worry about the house, because when you know what you want to do, the house reveal themselves as you go. It may sound simplistic, but it all starts from your energy. Once you have this creating energy or this force inside of you that you want to do something different because you just can't stand anymore where you've been, and you need change, a new job, a new career, a new craft, a new hobby is an extension, it's a manifestation of who you are. So then I don't think I think that starting a new path as a new bloomer it's intimately tied to this path of self-discovery. And in your path of self-discovery, if you're being honest with yourself, you'll end up being honest with everybody around you. In your life,
Mhm.
I promise you, I swear, your life is going to change. And you're going to suddenly be surrounded by all of these things that you are grateful for, and you realize, oh, if I have all of this, so suddenly I don't need to eat the entire pizza to feel satisfied because it's all instant gratification. By living in it, I said to Michelle a few days ago, like, if you live in a state of gratitude, when you reach living in a state of gratitude, you have less desire for instant satisfaction of shopping or eating or any other compulsive issue you may be dealing with in your life. And it's okay if you have it. I've had my dose of that too.
Mhm.
So then expressing myself through what I do today it's a way of healing. It brings a lot of peace into my day to day. And I totally think it's possible. When I talk about this thing, sometimes when I meet people that are going through challenges, it may sound as if I live in a bubble, but you still have a life to deal. You still have issues every day. You still have to wait for hours for customer service. You still deal with clients. You still deal with people that don't pay you on time. You deal with packages that get lost. And so running a business, the day to day of running a business occupies a lot of time and it's quite stressful. But at the end of the day, I couldn't go back to corporate America because of the masks I would have had to continue wearing, which there are people that are totally fine. My husband still works in corporate and he does very well. For me, I didn't. I prefer to make less or not make any and just stay home. But that was my personal choice.
Mhm. Self-love, taking that mask off is just what I
How
keep
much is it
hearing.
going to cost you? What are you willing to sacrifice to take the mask off?
Yeah.
Is it clothes? Did you live for your 20s and your 30s constantly dressed up and constantly, is it okay? There's people that have 3,000 bottles of cologne that spend a lot of money in perfume. You see them posting about, I don't have that size of collection. I do have a large collection of perfumes, but it's not that size. So then I end up, I would wonder, all right, okay, you went through that stage of having all of these things. All of this means something to you. What would you be willing to give up if you want a different meaning in your life? Because it's all about the compromise. You can't go to the universe and say, "Oh, I want to have this, just this, and then just that." The universe is going to come back. Universe is going to come back to you and say, "Okay, to get this, it's going to require this and this and this." The house that we were talking. Are you willing to sacrifice how long it's going to take you to get there? And if the answer is yes, I would say that's how you stay in your lane constantly asking yourself every week, is this the lane I want to continue? And you're allowed to change as many hundreds of times you need. When I was in corporate America, I would interview candidates for assistant designers and whatnot, and people would come a little bit embarrassed that they had career changes and whatnot. And one of the first things that I would say is, "This is all part of your life experience.
Mhm.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me." Well, but I'm so sorry. Yeah, and I had some jobs that are 3 months and 6 months. And I'm like, no, I love the fact that you're being honest. But just because you had 3 or 4 jobs in 3 years doesn't mean that this next job is not going to be the job where you're going to stay 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Just because things were a certain way in the past doesn't mean that this is the way they have to be today or this is the way they have to continue being. You can shape all of this as you're moving along and as you're going shaping, that's when the how will start to sort itself out. How do
Yeah.
I get there? How do I do this? And then the world, the universe, God, however you want to call it, is going to present you a few years down the road or a couple of years down the road as you're going on this path of recreating yourself. It's generally going to present you what I think is it's going to be a version of what you thought that's what you wanted, but because it's imbued with your own individuality, it's going to be perfect for you.
Yeah.
So it may be a different version of what you saw five. That's what I saw 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I was still in this idea of having a super successful brand that I would be everywhere. And I was defining success by being in as many stores. And today I am enjoying the fact that I am somewhat undiscovered.
Yeah, you redefined your success.
Yeah. Ricardo, this has been so beautiful. And of course, I've been wanting to chat about all of these things because I've gotten to know you over the last year. And so before we close, where can people find you? Where can people find RHR or even anything related to what you're creating, what you're putting out there? Where can we find you?
You have a blog, I think I saw as
Yeah,
well.
there's a blog, and my website. I have a website, RHR Luxury. RHR has resting heart rate. RHR are my initials.
Mm.
But then if you Google RHR and then the word luxury, we pop up. I pop up instantly. And I say we, it's because it's me, myself, and my husband, all the suppliers that make, all the people that make possible what I do. Because without trusted suppliers, wholesalers, there's no way to put a business together. I'm also on Instagram under RHR Luxury, and drop a line, send it through the customer service or the chat app. Say, oh, I heard your podcast on this and whatnot. If you'd like to learn more about the brand, I prefer to give people a discount. I enjoy much more the idea of saying, oh, here, you got a discount, go get it.
Yeah.
Give them an individual discount. The whole thing, and it's something that I discussed with you, Michelle, is that in order to enter retail, there's a part of it that you have to give the stores a markup. Otherwise, the store required they have to have a markup. And there's a component in all of that. I end up thinking that's why I started a range of more accessibly priced products. I've started this month with my candles at around $110 to $130, and now I have a candle that's $80. It's because I went directly to the source for the materials, the main materials for it. So I can afford to offer that. But I can afford to manage these things and be flexible because I have a small structure and I'm not a multi-million-dollar big brand. So I can afford to do things a little bit more artisanal
Yeah.
and be truthful about what I put it there. Like this candle that's less expensive. It's Palo Santo. It has real Palo Santo essential oil in it. It's not
Love
just an
that.
accord. It's just it's a real thing. So it really will smell like you're burning Palo Santo. If you don't like the smoke of the Palo Santo, but you want to try the smell on it, it's a resin. It smells like wood. Very grounding. All of the aspects of putting a business online or promoting your work will take some time. And just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ability to say, "Oh my God, I'm starting something new. How exciting is it?"
Absolutely. Well, Cardo, thank you so much for coming on Karmic Mirror. You can find him at rhr.luxury.
Yeah.
And also, you can find Ricardo's writing on Substack, which I highly encourage you to go look for, and we'll tag it all in the show notes. Yes, you do write really, really beautifully about all of the memories that have inspired or the way that you create. And I think it's totally, if you're a person listening and you're really, really curious about the inner workings of the fragrance world from someone, and especially if you're a generator and you're that person that likes to go down the rabbit hole and really go deep into the mastery of what it is that lights you up, your craft, certainly look for it and we'll tag it all. And we're so happy you came to Karmic Mirror.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel honored.
Thanks for tuning in. If you resonate with today's conversation, connect with us on Instagram at Karmic Mirror Podcast and send us a message.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're loving Karmic Mirror, we'd appreciate a glowing review or share with someone who could benefit.
As we close, remember, life is not a one-size-fits-all approach. How are you honoring your unique path? Stay curious and always be kind to yourself. Until next time on Karmic Mirror.